What's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here then welcome to our little corner of the internet. Today we're going to be watching a video titled Why Iran Never Dies, which I have absolutely no idea, so without further ado, let's see what this video is about.
We all know what's going on there. Right now there's a million videos and news feeds covering it, so instead of repeating all of that and speculating about how it might go, I think a better idea is to take a moment to learn about Iran's history as a whole, albeit briefly, because understanding the history of something will always allow us to better understand what happens next, whatever that is. So this is a brief history of Iran.
I thought this was it was going to be a mute history lesson, but no, it's the intro.
Long before the modern concept of Iran as a country was even around, this land was already home to pretty advanced civilizations. By around 4000 BC, they were organized into urban settlements. Urban in the context of ancient cities, of course. In the southwest, a civilization began to form called Elam. They interacted closely with Mesopotamia, and sites like Chogazanbil, one of the best preserved ziggurats outside Mesopotamia, show just how sophisticated they were. Ziggurats were
That's really cool.
these terraced compound buildings, kind of common in ancient times, mostly in the Middle East. The ancient city of Susa, which would become the capital of Elam, and later a capital city of the Achaemenid Empire, was first settled incredibly early, around.
Also, isn't it interesting to see how people adapted in different climates? Because in the northern parts and in Europe, they probably started with like wood cottages because that's what they had at hand. But even in a place that's hot and there's mostly just sand and rocks, which I might be completely mistaken because I've never been to Iran or near there. But they still found a way to, make their own houses, and they have their similarities, even though they weren't able to kind of show each other. Like, there was no YouTube video of how to make a house or like how to, like, I don't know, I just find it interesting that they still found a way to do it, and they had similarities on different parts of the world. Like windows. I don't know. Anyways, okay, let's continue.
Capital city of the Achaemenid Empire was first settled incredibly early, around.
Or did windows come because someone came from somewhere and traveled and told people about it, or I don't know.
Around 4400 BC. Then, around the 2nd millennium BC, Indo-Aryan people began arriving from Central Asia. I think these are the ones that we now mostly associate with the Iranian people. Among them were the Medesh, who built the first major Iranian state. In 612 BC, they teamed up with Babylon to destroy Assyria. They even sacked Nineveh, one of the most powerful cities in the world at the time. This kind of marks Iran's first big appearance on the global stage. Then came the Achaemenids, and this is where things get kind of huge for the first time. The Achaemenids united all Persian tribes under Cambyses I. Under his son, Cyrus the Great, they defeated the Medesh and established their Achaemenid Empire. Under Cyrus the Great, they united and built the largest empire that the world had ever seen up to that point. They conquered places as far as Lydia, Babylon, eventually Egypt. Under Darius the Great, I think Cyrus's son, they built monumental cities like Persepolis and created advanced road networks, including the Royal Road stretching from Susa to Sardis. Achaemenidia had provincial governors, tax systems, infrastructure, relative religious tolerance. It was one of history's first true superpowers and a very early appearance of what we now consider to be a modern state. But like always, expansion led to conflict. The Greco-Persian Wars saw Persia invade mainland Greece. At one point they controlled like half of it, but Greek victories at Salamish and Plataea pushed them back. Eventually, in the late 4th century BC, the opposite happened. Alexander the Great defeated the Persian king, Darius III. This empire fell, but Persian identity didn't. After Alexander the Great died, his empire fractured. The Seleucids ruled for a time, a Hellenistic state, like many others around them, governed by one of Alexander's generals. But Iranian power returned pretty soon with the Parthians. Their empire lasted 5 centuries, often fighting Rome in a kind of ancient Cold War situation, but internal instability eventually weakened them. And so
It's so weird to see how much also the countries and the areas have changed throughout time, and how the other cities, well, other countries have conquered other countries, and to think, or to be as naive as I am and think like that doesn't have to happen anymore. Like now the countries are just going to be the countries that they are. It's probably not going to happen. Like I think it's going to go on for forever. But I don't know. It's quite interesting to see how quickly everything can change.
in 224 AD, Ardashir I overthrew the Parthians and founded yet another empire, the Sasanian, arguably one of the most powerful Iranian dynasties ever. And it really seems that their history is just a back and forth of empire taking over empire, over and over again. The Sasanians once again were able to centralize the state. They strengthened Zoroastrianism as a unifying religion and built a strong bureaucracy. Zoroastrianism was actually one of, if not the first major monotheistic religion, away from Judaism and Christianity and then Islam. It emerged much earlier, but that's a whole other story, although it is important for Iran's identity throughout time. At their height, the Sasanians controlled places like all of Iran, Iraq, much of the Caucasus, even parts of Central Asia, and again clashed directly with Rome and Byzantium. But constant warfare weakened them, and in 651, Arab and Muslim armies defeated the Sasanian Empire. And so Islam arrived in the region. The Arab conquest didn't erase Iranian culture, but it did change it. At first, Arabic became dominant in administration, but Persian culture slowly reasserted itself. Over time, most Iranians converted to Islam. It rose from about 40% of Muslim people in the 9th century to nearly 90% by the 11th. A very quick increase in the conversion. Yet,
I didn't even know that it wasn't a thing before that. That's crazy.
Something pretty fascinating happened, which was instead of being absorbed by Arabic culture, Persian identity kind of reshaped Islam in the region. Persian language, poetry, administration, and court culture flourished again in what historians call the Iranian intermezzo, kind of a renaissance for them. It was a period where local Iranian dynasties reasserted control, even while acknowledging that Islamic authority. They needed to do it in order to survive. And after this, Persianization influenced not just Iran, but the wider Islamic world, including Arabs and Turks themselves. But then came one of the darkest chapters in Iran's history, the Mongol invasions. In the early 13th century, Genghis Khan's forces swept into Iran. Cities like Bukhara, Nishapur, and Herat were destroyed. Entire populations were massacred, as they were everywhere else that the Mongols went through. And by 1258, the Mongols ended.
I have never even heard of the Mongols. I am so uneducated. Also, I just realized that there's very, very low lighting here. I'm sorry, guys. That was my bad. My bad.
The Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad. But again, Iran didn't vanish. Under the Ilkhanate, Mongol rulers eventually converted to Islam, and soon Persian administrators returned to prominence, keeping their culture around. Still, the Black Death killed about 30% of the population, almost the same as in Europe. And because there's never two without three, then came Timur, another brutal conqueror who massacred cities like Isfahan and many others. Yet, once again, after destruction, Persian culture endured. It's like history kept and keeps throwing catastrophic things at them, and they survive. So much so that the real foundation of modern Iran only begins after all of this.
Is there a time limit to what is considered historical? Like, when does the COVID come a historical event? In 100 years, in 50 years? When do they start teaching about that in schools? as part of history? And do they take out things from the past and teach like the most recent history only, or?
Yes, in 1501 with the Safavid dynasty. They reunified Iran as a cohesive political entity under native rule, pushing away Mongol or Arab rulers. And most importantly, they still declared Shia Islam as the official religion. That decision permanently shaped their identity, and while it accepted Islam, it also set it apart from its largely Sunni neighbors. It's like they had already differentiated themselves by absorbing Islam into their local culture rather than becoming Arab, but now they marked their difference from the rest of the Islamic world definitively. This is important to understand conflicts that last until today against Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and other Gulf nations. The Safavid state was once again centralized and powerful, but like all others before it, it eventually weakened, falling in 1722 after an Afghan invasion. And then chaos followed. Nader Shah emerged as a military genius in the 18th century. Some compare him to Napoleon or Alexander. He built a massive empire stretching into India, even sacking Delhi at one point. But his wars drained Iran's economy. After he was killed, the country descended into instability again. But eventually, like always, another dynasty took over, this one called the Qajar. Under them, because they also coincided with the peak of European colonialism, Iran faced foreign interference at a pretty intense level. Russia seized territories in the Caucasus. Britain pushed into southern Iran to protect its interests in India. The country was kind of squeezed between empires. The Great Persian Famine of 1870 devastated the population, killing what we estimate to be millions of people. By the early 20th century, pressure for reform kind of exploded into the constitutional revolution, which established a parliament. And while modern Iran can trace this emergence back to 1501, like we said earlier, we can kind of associate our modern perception of pre-Islamic Republic Iran to what happens next. In 1921, Reza Shah rose to power and founded the Pahlavi dynasty. He modernized infrastructure, built railways, secularized the state, and promoted nationalism. But
I really want to see like photos of Iran in the cities, because I've never seen what it looks like. So I think it would be quite eye-opening to see. I mean, I've seen now recently some videos, but not a lot.
he ruled as an authoritarian leader. During World War II, Britain and the Soviet Union invaded Iran to secure oil and supply routes, and Reza Shah was forced to abdicate in favor of his son, Mohammad Reza Shah. In 1951, the prime minister at the time, Mohammad Mossadegh, nationalized the Iranian oil industry, and in response, the US and the UK backed a coup in 1953 that removed him and restored the Shah's authority. From then on, the Shah ruled as an autocrat with very strong American relations and backing. His white revolution pushed modernization but angered religious leaders and many ordinary Iranians. And by 1978, the protests were massive. Millions marched against the regime. The Shah fled in 1979. Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile and led the creation of the Islamic Republic after a referendum passed with over 99% approval. And Iran transformed from monarchy to an Islamic theocracy. Shortly after, Iraq actually invaded, starting the Iran-Iraq War in 1980, which lasted for 8 years, killing roughly 500,000 people and ending in a stalemate. And then we get to modern times. After Khomeini's death in 1989, Ali Khamenei became supreme leader. Presidents came and went, but ultimate authority remained with the supreme leader. This is a chart of how their government works, and This is a chart of how they're...
Oh, so they do have a president too. I thought that there was only a supreme leader. So supreme leader, guardian council, 12 members, 6 chosen by the supreme leader and 6 chosen by the judicracy. All members are then approved by parliament. There's a parliament, voters. So there's voters that vote for a president. And then there's voters, and then they take the experts out of the voters to choose a supreme leader. But what does the president do then? Okay. I guess I imagine I don't get it. I imagine that the president does then all the kind of laws and the boring tax stuff, and the supreme leader is like just like the voice, I guess.
So confusing, but it all kind of boils down to power, going back to the supreme leader. Iran pursued nuclear technology, leading to sanctions and global tensions. The 2015 nuclear deal briefly eased sanctions, but the US withdrew in 2018, and since then, tensions have intensified. Assassinations, drone and missile exchanges with Israel, US strikes, and escalating regional conflict. Now, in 2026, direct confrontation between Iran and the United States, plus Israel along them, marks one of the most dangerous escalations in the country's modern history. At the same time, mass protests inside Iran, driven by economic crisis and political frustration, have led to severe crackdowns and thousands of deaths at the hand of the regime. It's an incredibly saddening and awful situation, but one silver lining might be that Iran has gone through dozens of moments like this in its history, and it's still there. Empires fall, dynasties collapse, ideologies shift, but the Iranian identity, shaped by language, culture, memory of their very long history, and their very interesting geography, which is a topic for a whole other video, has proved almost impossible to erase. And that's what makes Iran not just a country, but one of history's constants. And after whatever happens now, and after that, Iran, its people, and its culture will still be there.
Dun, dun, dun. I mean, it's not why Iran never dies, it's more like why it's so permanent. Permanent. So, strong, I guess, right now. I haven't really watched any recent videos about the situation. I wonder what's going on. Maybe we should check something out. But thank you so much, guys, for joining me for this video. I really hope you liked it. Please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!